Now, we also briefly touched upon Reform and Integrity Act. So for context, EB-5 has been around since the 90s, and the Regional Center program was a pilot program for the longest time. And in 2022, the EB-5 Reform and Integrity Act was passed. So I guess, Rohit, could you shed some light? What were like some of the changes that were introduced by the Reform and Integrity Act, which also, what was the impact of that on the demand of EB-5?
Thank you, Avi, again. The demand for EB-5 has just skyrocketed. I think that is fantastic. It's very comforting for all of us who are in the business because it validates the program. It validates the EB-5 visa category as well. One of the biggest changes was referred to earlier by one of our panelists, which gave you the ability to file a concurrent adjustment of status. And like Neeraj said, that it allowed you to get an EAD, allowed you to get advanced parole, allowed you to remain in the United States. And like Brandon correctly said, it not just allows you to remain, the way I explain it is, it entitles you to remain in the United States. Yeah, there are going to be some conditions that you need to comply with. Don't leave the United States if you're on an F1 till you have an advanced parole. And, I'll let Abhi, you deal with that question a little bit down the road. But clearly, that's a huge change. The amount has been solidified at $800,000, which will go up as of Jan 2027 because it's supposed to get changed every 5 years. I think it's done a lot of good for the investors because there is a third-party fund administrator that's been introduced that protects them or gives them a much greater degree of comfort, saying there are less likely to be bad actors and bad players and misuse of monies that are invested. There is, a mandatory, not just a fund administrator, but an audit probably that's going to take place. The amounts, it has certainly weeded out a lot of regional centers. For lack of a better word, I'm going to say the marginal regional centers have stepped out of the way because either they couldn't raise the funds, they couldn't compete with the big boys like Golden Gate, they couldn't necessarily keep up that pace over there. So those are at least some of the highlighted changes. From an investor's point of view, I think the biggest change, the absolute most pleasant surprise, or the windfall, if you want to call it that way, is filing the concurrent adjustment of status. There are several other changes which may not impact the investor that much, though.
The Reform Integrity Act, for the reasons that Rohit mentioned and in this grandfathering, is so much more investor friendly than what came before it. It's also so much less regional center friendly for some of the reasons that Rohit mentioned. I mean, basically, if nothing else, it significantly increased regional centers' compliance requirements and compliance costs, which drove some of the kind of, I think Rohit used a very, very kind word when you said marginal, but it drove some of the marginal players out there like, do we want to do this if we have to pay $48,000 plus every time we do a new project and all these other year-end compliance costs? We're out. And so that's had the positive effect by leaving those who are still in the business on average are, far stronger and far better than what we saw on average 5 years ago in the market.
And if I could just add to that, I think all of us have our own issues with USCIS as an industry and as a whole, right? But also credit where credit's due. I think as a result of the Reform and Integrity Act, USCIS has improved the EB-5 program. I think processing times have gone a lot better. Again, a lot of these more investor-friendly provisions such as grandfathering, the concurrent filings. I mean, I think, we're seeing APEADs issued in less than 6 months. We're seeing I-526Es processed in less than 12 months. So, they have improved greatly as a result of that RAA.